She called him arrogant and cold, until he was the only one who fought for her career. Part 1, Characters, 7648. Sometimes, the person who irritates us the most is exactly the one who will change our life forever. This is the story of how Emma discovered that the man she called arrogant and cold would be the only one willing to fight for her when everyone else abandoned her. Emma Carter, 28, talented architect at one of New York's largest firms. 5 years of career, countless successful projects, and one dream: becoming a partner in the company. But there was one obstacle in her path. A man she considered her biggest thorn in the side. Alexander Stone, 32, project director at the firm. Impeccable, meticulous, and apparently impossible to impress. To Emma, he was the definition of corporate arrogance. Emma's first thought when meeting him was always the same: who does he think he is? Just because he has an MBA from Harvard and wears expensive suits, he thinks he can dismiss my work like that. Every meeting was a battle. Every project, a silent battlefield. In one typical meeting, Alexander would say, "This design doesn't meet the standards we've established. It needs to be redone." Emma would respond, "Standards? Or just your personal opinion disguised as professionalism?" And Alexander would coldly reply, "Miss Carter, when you have the necessary experience to question established protocols, we'll have that conversation." For months, Emma fed this image of Alexander. Cold, calculating, impossible to satisfy. She had no idea that behind that professional facade, something very different was happening. Then came the opportunity Emma had been waiting for years. The new Cultural Center project for the city. A $50 million contract. The chance to prove her worth and secure her promotion to partner. Emma thought to herself, "This is my moment. I was born for this project." Emma dedicated herself completely. Sleepless nights, sacrificed weekends, every detail meticulously planned. Her proposal was perfect. During her presentation, she confidently stated, "I present to you not just a building, but a symbol of cultural renewal for our city." But Emma didn't know that while she was placing all her trust in the company, some colleagues were plotting against her. In whispered conversations in hallways, one colleague said, "Emma is too confident. Maybe it's time to show her she's not ready for the big leagues yet." Another replied, "You're right. Let's make sure Michael is considered for the project." In a cowardly move, her own colleagues began to undermine her work, spreading doubts about her ability and even suggesting she had copied ideas from previous projects. Like fire on dry straw, the rumors spread through the company. Emma, who was respected for her ethics and talent, suddenly saw her reputation being questioned. Emma noticed the whispers, the way conversations stopped when she entered rooms. "Why is everyone looking at me like that? What's happening?" she wondered. In a tense meeting in the conference room, the director confronted her. "Emma, some concerns have reached us about your project. There are allegations that elements of the design were inspired by previous works." Emma responded defensively. "Inspired? Are you accusing me of plagiarism? I created every line of this project." The director replied, "We need to investigate these allegations. Until then, Michael will take over the project leadership." Within days, Emma went from rising star to persona non grata. Colleagues who once greeted her now avoided her. Her confidence was shattered. Emma sat alone in her office, packing her belongings and thinking, 5 years of my life, all thrown away because of lies. Throughout this entire time, Alexander was watching. And unlike everyone else, he saw something that no one else was seeing. While Emma fought against despair, Alexander was doing something no one expected. He was investigating. Late nights in his office, Alexander meticulously went through every detail of Emma's work. He compared her designs with the alleged inspirations. What he found made his blood boil. The accusations were completely false. Not only that, but Alexander discovered something worse. Emma's colleagues had deliberately sabotaged her presentation files, altering dates and adding elements from other projects to make it look like plagiarism. Alexander faced a choice. He could stay silent, protect his own position, and let Emma face the consequences of others' lies. Or he could do something that would put his own career at risk. Alexander picked up his phone and said, "I need to schedule a meeting with the board. It's about the Emma Carter case." For the first time in his career, Alexander Stone was about to put someone else's future before his own. Alexander requested an emergency meeting with the board. Emma wasn't invited, but she was the main topic. Alexander began boldly, "Gentlemen, I have evidence that Emma Carter has been the victim of a deliberate sabotage campaign." A board member responded, "That's a serious accusation, Alexander." Alexander replied, "And I have serious proof." For the next hour, Alexander methodically presented every piece of evidence he had gathered. Modified files, manipulated timestamps, forged documents. The case against Emma crumbled like a house of cards. Alexander stated firmly, "Emma Carter is not only innocent of these accusations, but she's also the victim of the most cowardly professional sabotage I've ever witnessed." The silence in the room was deafening. The board members looked at each other, realizing they had almost destroyed an innocent woman's career based on lies. One board member asked, "Why are you doing this, Alexander? This could have consequences for your own position." Alexander replied, "Because it's the right thing to do. And because Emma Carter is the most talented architect this company has ever had." Emma was called to the director's office, expecting the worst. Instead, she found herself face to face with a formal apology and a complete vindication. The director said, "Emma, we owe you a sincere apology. You've been the victim of a serious injustice." When Emma learned it was Alexander who had fought for her, who had risked his own career to uncover the truth, her entire perception of him changed in an instant. "He did all this for me," she wondered. Emma found Alexander in his office and asked simply, "Why?" Alexander responded, "Because you deserved the truth. And because I've been watching your work for years. You're brilliant, Emma. I was never criticizing you to tear you down. I was pushing you because I knew you were capable of excellence." In that moment, Emma realized that every harsh criticism, every demanding standard, had been Alexander's way of helping her grow. The man she thought was her biggest obstacle had actually been her greatest supporter all along. "I misjudged you completely," Emma admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought you were arrogant and cold, but you were protecting me, weren't you? Even when I was rude to you, even when I questioned your every decision." Alexander's expression softened for the first time since she'd known him. "Emma, excellence isn't achieved through praise alone. It's forged through challenge, through being pushed beyond what you think you're capable of. I saw your potential from day one, but I also saw that you were settling for good when you could achieve greatness." The revelation hit Emma like a wave. Every demanding revision, every seemingly impossible standard, every moment she'd felt frustrated with his expectations. It had all been his way of believing in her more than she believed in herself. "The Cultural Center Project," Emma said, understanding dawning in her eyes. "You could have taken credit for uncovering the truth. You could have positioned yourself as the hero who saved the company from a scandal. Instead, you made sure I got the recognition I deserved." Alexander nodded. "Your career matters more to me than my own advancement ever could. I've spent 2 years watching you grow, watching you overcome every challenge I set before you. When I saw them trying to destroy you with lies, I couldn't stand by and let it happen." 6 months later, Emma not only got her promotion to partner but also became the lead architect on the Cultural Center project. But the biggest change in her life wasn't professional. The man she once called arrogant and cold became the love of her life. Because sometimes, the person who challenges us the most is exactly the one who believes in us the most. In the final scene, as Emma and Alexander looked at the finished Cultural Center, Emma said, "Thank you for fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself." Alexander replied, "Thank you for letting me prove that love sometimes comes disguised as professional standards." And they lived happily ever after, building not just buildings, but a life together. Their love story became legendary at the firm. Proof that sometimes what we interpret as coldness is actually the deepest form of care, and what we see as arrogance is really unwavering faith in our potential.